Let my daughter watch an R-rated horror movie as a reward for tolerating a frustrating dress shopping trip, and now my wife is furious. I 40 male have 3 kids, all girls. We're going to my brother's wedding soon. My oldest is 12 and was upset that she is going as a guest when her sisters, 6 and 8, get to be flower girls, which she's never been. We've been trying to find something nice for Leah to wear, but she was not having a great time with this dress shopping process. Someone suggested we do something fun afterward as a reward, like going out for lunch, taking a friend or seeing a movie. Her friends are out of town, so I suggested we go shopping first then go to a movie. We get the dress then go to the theater. Leah wanted to watch 28 Years Later. It's rated R and I'm not really okay with her watching something like that. I suggested we go see Superman or Lilo and Stitch or take a rain check and watch Fantastic Four, but no. She wants to watch 28 Years Later. I figure why not, I watched our movies when I was younger. The only other person who would have a problem would be her mom, and she was working. So we go see that movie. Well, my wife found out and she's furious that I let our daughter watch that movie. She says it was irresponsible for me to take her to it and that we should have done something else. Her stance is that I should have suggested we do something else instead of doing what Leah wanted. I don't agree. First off, it was the only way we could get Leah to go along with getting a dress. Second, since she's too old to have a part in the wedding, I may as well let her do something adult and let her watch the movie. She actually handled it well, she loved the movie. But my wife still thinks it was irresponsible and I was basically bribing our daughter into shopping. If this was such a big deal for her, she should have just taken her shopping herself. But I'm rambling. Ida for taking my daughter to 28 Years Later as a reward for going along with shopping for a wedding? Edit, I'm getting a lot of comments about whether it was okay to let her watch our movie without her mom's okay. Here's my side of the story. My wife tried to take Leah dress shopping before. It ended with them fighting over what to wear because 1, Leah didn't like the clothes her mom picked out and 2, she didn't want to go to the wedding. A friend suggested we do something fun to reward her afterward, which is why I came up with the movie. The deal was that if we can find an outfit Leah can wear without argument, then we can go to the movies a reward. Her choice. I thought she would pick How to Train Your Dragon or Superman. I didn't think she would want to watch 28 Years Later. Some people said I should have taken her home if she didn't pick another movie. I think that would have been counterproductive. What kind of message am I sending if I took her shopping then said, okay, we picked out a dress you don't like and is going to Goodwill once this shindig is over. But since you won't pick another movie, we're going home. Besides, I watched worse things when I was younger. We don't normally watch horror movies. I love them, but my wife is stricter on what the kids watch. The kids mostly watch things like Disney or DreamWorks or family films. As for the movie, Leah loved it. She and I had a pretty good talk on the way home. She'd never watched 28 Days Later, so I filled her in on what happened. The only part that she found upsetting was the story with the mom, but that has to do with her losing a classmate recently. We talked a bit about how it would have felt for the kid in the movie. He's the same age as her and what that would have been like for both him and his actor. She hasn't had any nightmares, but I'm going to talk to her again just to make sure things are okay. Update 1. To recap, I took my 12-year-old daughter to watch 28 Years Later as a reward/incentive/bribe to go along with dress shopping for a family wedding. I had a lot of comments reassuring me that I didn't do anything wrong. That felt like a relief. I'm an 80s kid and I had watched movies like Alien, Terminator, Child's Play and Friday the 13th by the time I was Leah's age. Good to know others got to share those experiences because sometimes it feels like she doesn't get to experience that freedom I got to enjoy growing up. My wife was pissed about the movie. She grew up in a more conservative household and didn't watch her first R-rated movie until she was in her 20s. Her concern was that Leah never seen a movie like 28 Years Later and pointed out how scary the trailer and the advertisements were. She was afraid that she would get nightmares, which didn't happen. Couldn't we have done something else instead? That's when I asked what her game plan was when she and Leah were trying to find a dress. My wife was dumbfounded and admitted that she thought about going to lunch, but it didn't happen. I asked her if she noticed how upset Leah was at dress shopping because on the drive home, Leah told me that while she hated shopping, she had fun at the movie. That was when she spilled, she was upset at being left out of the wedding, how she didn't want to be a guest when her sisters and cousins get to be flower girls or ushers or the ring bearer. She didn't like how she looks in dresses and was afraid of what everyone was going to say about her, but she hated the suit she tried on more. She thought it felt like a chore and asked if it was too late to not go. And that she told me that once, her mom said that it wasn't about her. As much as she hated that we watched 28 Years Later, my wife admitted that she screwed up on the dress part, that we should have done more of an effort to make this wedding experience better for her. My wife apologized and said I did good. The wedding itself was a dumpster fire, but that's another story for another time. My wife did make it up to Leah by letting an older cousin take her out to get her hair and nails done the morning of the wedding. One good thing that came out of this, Leah loved the movie date and has been asking when we can do it again. I returned the dress, she did say she hated it and won't wear it again, and I'm going to use the money to take her to watch Weapons when it comes out. We've also been watching more movies at home together, when her sisters are in bed of course. Update 2. My brother is getting married this weekend. There's a rehearsal dinner on Friday night. He and his wife-to-be made it clear that it was bridal party only. My wife and I took it to mean adults only. However, my brother is now telling me that it includes the kids in the party, aka my 2 younger daughters and a nephew, and that his wife can't wait to see them at the dinner. We have another kid who isn't in the party. We already made plans for an older cousin to take them to go get pizza and watch the Fantastic Four. I need some input. Is it normal to have kids at the rehearsal dinner? I can't find any other info online, otherwise I'm just going to tell my brother that the kids already have plans. Edit. To be clear, the plan is for our younger kids to go to the rehearsal itself, then have the cousin come pick them up for the movie. The other reason why we thought the dinner would be adults only is because it's going to be at a steakhouse that doesn't offer a lot for kids. Lastly, why is my oldest kid not in the bridal party? My brother says that she's too old. She's not the only one, as she has some older cousins who didn't make the cut either. She's hanging out with them on the day of the rehearsal. Edit 2. I just got off the phone. I asked my brother what he meant by bridal party only and kids in the party. He said that the rehearsal dinner was for everyone who went to the rehearsal, and their parents. I asked if my oldest could come even though she's a guest. He said no because his wife's family is paying for it. The restaurant is really pricey and they want to keep it to people actually in the wedding. My wife apparently got a pass because of our 2 youngest. What a crock of crap. I told my brother that sorry, the kids already have plans for Friday night. But my wife and I will be there. Update 3. This happened at my brother's wedding last week. There were 4 ushers, 2 of whom are our nephews and 2 are related to the bride. I don't remember how they are related. This is a wedding of 250 plus people, and the bride's ushers disappeared, leaving Jackson and Newt, who are 17 and 14, to hold down the fort. Something important to note is that we think Newt is on the spectrum. He gets easily overstimulated. Having to deal with hundreds of guests left him feeling overwhelmed. My daughter, Leah, is close to Newt and he asked her to help while he went to calm down. I'm in this room, getting reading with my brothers and the other groomsmen when someone comes to get me because the wedding coordinator is screaming at my 12-year-old. I run out to the front and I see this Abby Lee Miller looking psycho yelling at my daughter, screaming at my nephew, and Newt is freaking out while Leah is trying to calm him down. My sister Melissa is alerted and she comes out, yelling at the coordinator to stop it. It became this whole thing where everyone was shouting and screaming at each other like it's an episode of Real Housewives of Fort Myers. When it's over, the coordinator stormed off. Newt is freaking out and Leah, Jackson and Melissa are furious. Melissa decided then and there to take the boys home. Leah wants to go too, which me and her mom give the okay. Several of their cousins also decided to talk out. We end up leaving immediately after the ceremony. The bride was furious that half the attendees, mostly on the groom's side, ended up not coming to the reception. As for the 2 other ushers? Right now, the bride and the groom are in trouble with the venue because the ushers were found smoking on the grounds. We live in Florida and what they were smoking isn't legal recreationally. Update 4. I thought the fire burned itself out after we left the reception early. Apparently it had an after-party. 2 mornings after the wedding I'm out in the driveway pretending to fix the sprinkler head I ran over with the minivan when my phone starts blowing up. First it's my mom. Your brother is saying the venue charged them extra because half the groom's side ghosted and they didn't meet the bar minimum, and now the bride's mother is saying you owe for your table and you need to make your daughter apologize to the coordinator. I said, absolutely not. For any of it. Mom sighs like only a woman with 5 grown kids can sigh and says fine, but be ready for your brother to call. 10 minutes later, he does. He's doing that tight voice he does when he's trying not to cry or yell and lands somewhere in the middle. He says the venue hit them with a fee because of the ushers getting caught smoking and because the flow was interrupted and they had to reassign staff. He says the coordinator is saying the whole thing went off the rails because a child was interfering with guest management and that she was forced to be firm and that she has documentation. He says the bride's parents are out real money and the least I could do is cover our portion and get Leah to take responsibility so they can present that to the venue and move on. He says they're supposed to leave for their honeymoon on Thursday and this is ruining it. I tell him I'm sorry this turned into a mess. I know weddings are stressful, but we're not paying you because we left quietly after your coordinator screamed at my 12-year-old, and we're not making a child apologize to an adult who lost it on her in front of an entire church. I tell him I've got video of the firmness from 3 angles because everyone and their uncle recorded it. I tell him if they want to present something to the venue, they can add the footage of the ushers hotboxing, the garden behind the Spanish Moss and the line of cars leaving like it's Daytona 500. He sputters and says it wasn't hotboxing. It was a poor choice, and that's not the point. I tell him the point is nobody talks to my kid like that and then sends me a bill. So then the group chat starts. My sister Melissa, mother of Jackson and Newt, goes nuclear. She drops the video of the coordinator in the thread and tags me, our parents, my other 2 sisters, and the groom. You can hear the coordinator very clearly telling Leah to get out of the way, you are not part of this, and then pointing at Newt and snapping her fingers at him while he's stimming with his hands, and Leah is saying, he just needs a break. The coordinator then turns to Jackson and says, where are the other ushers? And Jackson goes, gone. We've been doing this by ourselves for 20 minutes, and she screeches, that's not my responsibility, and then it devolves into Melissa storming down the aisle in her wedges like the season finale of Real Housewives of Fort Myers. After that, nobody has much to say in the chat for about 20 minutes. Silence, the kind you can taste. Then bride's mom pops in. She leaves a paragraph about expectations, respect, and our side feeling ambushed by your side's hostility and remembering this day is about the couple. She attaches a spreadsheet with per head costs circled in red like a crime scene. My wife, who has been quiet through all of this and who is usually the one trying to keep me from setting things on fire, goes to town. She writes back, the only ambush was an adult screaming at a child who was helping her overwhelmed cousin because 2 of the ushers you provided were off getting high. If the venue fined you for that, direct your spreadsheet to those boys' parents. As for Leah apologizing, absolutely not. She did nothing wrong. Then she calls out the line it's not about her and says, I said that once and I was wrong. Don't use my mistake to make a 12-year-old your scapegoat. I fell in love with her again right there, in my driveway, holding a cracked sprinkler head. What I didn't know until later was that the venue manager had already called Melissa and my brother separately. Apparently they have a list of preferred vendors and the coordinator wasn't on it. The bride's aunt knew a woman who does corporate events and got her to come in on a handshake. The venue manager told them point blank they will not work with this coordinator again and that they have 3 guest complaints in writing about how she spoke to people, one specifically mentioning a little girl being yelled at. He also told them about the ushers. Security walked them in from the garden and they smelled like a reggae festival. One of them was 19. A sheriff's deputy showed up to write a trespass warning because of the smoking on the property and the minor situation and because somebody left a burn in a chair cushion. The usher's mother, bride's cousin, tried to tell the deputy it was CBD. The deputy told her CBD doesn't smell like that and he wasn't born yesterday. Somewhere in the middle of all that, Newt's dad texts me to say they had to take Newt to urgent care after they got home from the ceremony because he had a panic attack that wouldn't come down. He's okay, he's back at school now, but the doctor gave him something for events like that and gave them a printout about sensory overload and suggested that for future large gatherings, someone needs to be his designated calm space. We would have happily been that. We were being that, until a woman with 13 hair extensions and a headset decided to make herself famous in our family group chat. We didn't go to the day after brunch. A lot of people didn't. My parents ended up hosting an impromptu do-over in their backyard that afternoon. My dad grilled too much chicken, mom got a Publix cake that said congrats anyway in blue icing because that's what they had in the case, and somebody's kid sprayed everyone with a hose. Leah came in a black blazer and her old Chucks and sat on the cooler eating watermelon with Jackson and Newt, who was quieter than normal, and then later she and Newt went in the den and put on the end of the lightning game. My wife and Melissa's oldest started painting nails at the picnic table. A few of our cousins who walked out played cornhole like nothing happened and it felt like the family I actually recognize. When it got dark, my dad pulled out the extension cords and strung up the same Christmas lights he's been using since 1999 and we danced to whatever Pandora decided wedding playlist means. Leah smiled for the first time in days. Before we left, she hugged my wife without being asked and went, "Thanks for sticking up for me," and my wife went into the laundry room and cried quietly for a minute. She came out with puffy eyes and handed Leah the last piece of cake. I wish that was the end of it. Next morning, we get a Venmo request from my brother for $1,800 with the caption portion of losses. I thought it was a joke. My wife did not. She hit decline and texted him, "Do not send that again." He sent it again. I called him, told him it's not happening, and this is now moving into a place where we won't speak for a while if he keeps pushing. He said he's under pressure from his in-laws. I said that sounds like a problem between him and his in-laws. He said they postponed their honeymoon. I told him to go to Sanibel for the weekend and turn his phone off. He said that's not the point. It never is. About 2 hours later, the bride herself calls me. I almost didn't answer but I did because I do love my brother and I don't think she's a monster. I think this whole thing brought out something ugly in everyone. She starts off stiff, then she starts crying. She says she saw the video from the church and she's mortified. She says she didn't know the coordinator was yelling at a kid, she just thought there was noise up front because the doors to the bridal suite were closed. She says she thought people left because of the rain, it rained for 6 minutes, and her dress straps weren't sitting right and she missed the sparkler exit she dreamed about. She says her mother told her we started a thing. She says she doesn't want to fight with us, she wants to start her marriage not like this. She apologizes to me and to Leah and to Melissa and to my parents. She does not mention money. I tell her thank you, and I'll pass it on to Leah, and I'm sorry the day went sideways. I tell her the coordinator needs to apologize to my kid if she wants to be invited anywhere near any of us again. She says she'll tell her. I say please don't tell her anything, just give me the number and I'll tell her. She says okay. The coordinator actually called me later. You ever hear someone apologize while auditioning for sympathy at the same time? It was that. She said she regretted how her tone landed but that she was under immense pressure and when a child inserts themselves into the mechanics of an event, safety is compromised. I told her the child was actually removing herself and her cousin from danger because your ushers were missing and the hallway was a human stampede, and if you ever point your finger at my daughter again you will be escorted out of whatever room you're in before you get to finish your sentence. She said she didn't realize the boy had needs. I told her his needs are nobody's business to disclose to strangers and also if you need to know whether he has needs look at his face and use common sense. She got quiet and said she was sorry again. I told her to send the same apology to Leah and Newt's parents. She did. It wasn't great, but it existed. We thought we'd heard the last of the ushers until one of our cousins sends us screenshots from Instagram of the bride's cousin's kid, the 19-year-old, posting a story at the wedding with a joint in his mouth and Fort Myers lit written over the video with fire emojis. He tagged the venue. The venue reposted it with a note, "We do not condone illegal activity on our property." Then they DM'd the mom. If there was a rock in the state of Florida big enough for that boy to hide under, he'd be under it. The mom tried the CBD thing again publicly. Her own sister commented, "Girl, it's not CBD." They are apparently getting a bill for the upholstery cleaning and a fine from the venue. Suddenly the $1,800 Venmo request stopped. Last piece of this, because this post is long enough to be a novella, my brother came by last night. No bride, just him. He brought over leftover favors and a bouquet in a mason jar and sat at our kitchen table like a kid who got sent to the principal, which is funny because he used to live at the principal's office. He said he was sorry. He said he's been trying to make everybody happy and he made no one happy. He said the bridal party only language was on him because he thought it was obvious that included the kids actually in the bridal party, but he understands how it looked and he should have been clearer. He said he didn't watch the video until yesterday because he thought it would make him feel worse and it did. He said he called Newt to apologize and he texted Leah. He also said he told his in-laws he will not be sending anyone any more invoices and if they want to come after us, he will defend us. Then he asked if he could take Leah out for ice cream and to the big comic book store this weekend because he heard she's into the zombie movies now and they have a stack of old graphic novels he thinks she'd like. Leah came down the stairs at that exact second wearing my old Ray's hoodie and she stared at him like she wasn't sure. He said, "I messed up, kiddo," and she went, "I know," and then she hugged him. They went to Dairy Queen and came back with mint blizzards and a bag of comics. On the top was an old 28 Days Later tie-in. She read it on the couch with her feet in his lap. So that's where we are. We're not paying for empty chairs. The coordinator will not be at any event with our family ever again. I told my wife that as much as I love horror movies, I think we've had enough jump scares for 1 month. She laughed. Then Leah asked if we could rent 28 Days Later because she wants to see the first one properly and not just hear the dad recap in the car. We did. She asked a lot of smart questions and fell asleep halfway through, with her head on her mom's shoulder. I carried her to bed and she didn't even wake up when the sprinkler came on at midnight and started blasting the window because I still haven't fixed it. I'll get to it. After this, I think we all earned a quiet week. Update 5. The quiet week lasted until Wednesday at 10:13 a.m., which is when the doorbell rang and the mailman handed me a big manila envelope that had Gulf Coast Event Solutions, LLC across the top in a font that looked like it had been purchased at OfficeMax in 2006. It was a notice of defamation and demand to cease and desist from the coordinator. I read it sitting on the front steps in my gym shorts with a smudge of bacon grease on my shirt like a man who'd already spiritually left his body. It said phrases like false narrative, irreparable harm, and we reserve the right to pursue damages, and then my favorite line, your family disseminated video, which fails to capture context. I yelled into the house, "Honey, we have context," and my wife came out, took the letter, and started laughing, the kind of laugh that sounds like you're holding back a sneeze and a scream at the same time. Across the street, my neighbor Carl was washing his truck, which he does for sport, and he shouted, "You suing someone?" I said, "It's the other way around," and he came over like I'd announced a fish fry. Carl is a real estate attorney who wears flip-flops to everything but court and once got us out of an HOA citation by arguing the definition of decorative flag. He read the letter, handed it back to me, and said, "Tell her to go pound sand. Also, welcome to Florida's anti-slap statute." He used phrases like protected speech, truth is an absolute defense, and then, because he is a man of the people, she can't scare you into shutting up just because she's salty. My wife kissed Carl on the cheek like he was a war hero returning from the front and went inside to type. She ended up sending a polite email saying we wouldn't be doing anything except forwarding the venue's email and the deputy's incident report to her if she actually wanted context. She CC'd the venue manager and the bride. The coordinator replied 3 hours later with a smaller email that said, "Understood," and immediately took down the Facebook post where she'd referred to juvenile interruptions at a challenging ceremony accompanied by a stock photo of a woman holding a clipboard. Later that night, one of my cousins texted me a screenshot of that same post before it vanished. In the comments, the bride's aunt wrote, "You were an angel," and somebody named Karen with no profile picture wrote, "Children need to learn their place." Melissa replied, "His place was not having a panic attack," and then I guess the post decided to die of embarrassment. I would have been happy letting the internet dig its own grave while I dug out the sprinkler head. But life is one of those claw machines that doesn't let go even when you didn't push any buttons. Thursday, Leah's English teacher called. The caller ID popped up school and I had that parent flash of "oh no," who died or who painted something they shouldn't. Instead it was the teacher with a voice like a golden retriever. She said Leah wrote an essay for their personal narrative unit about what it feels like to be loud in your heart and asked if I'd read it. She emailed it to me and I sat on the couch and read all 2 pages while the 6-year-old pretended the ottoman was a horse. Leah wrote about standing next to Newt while people float around them like a river and about feeling her stomach kick like she'd swallowed a bird and how she told him, "It's okay, it's just a lot," and how an adult with a headset can feel bigger than their actual body. She tied it to the kid in the movie and to her classmate who died in the fall, and about how sometimes the fear is the same shape even when the room is different. I had to sit there with my face in my t-shirt like the world's saddest bank robber. The teacher asked if we'd be okay with her submitting it to a district anthology and possibly reading a section at the spring showcase. I said yes before she finished her sentence and then immediately texted my wife, who responded 10 minutes later from the parking lot at Publix with a photo of her crying in the minivan. The bride called me that night and said she read the essay too because the teacher is also her cousin's wife because of course, and she said, "I don't want to be the reason you were writing things like that," and I told her she wasn't. The aunt called me after that and launched into a speech about the optics of airing family issues in public school forums. I told her the only optics I enjoy are binoculars at a Rays game, and if she was worried about optics she shouldn't have hired a woman who wears 13 hair extensions to scream at children during a sacrament. Friday afternoon, my brother's in-laws decided to try one last valiant charge up San Juan Hill. They invited us to their house for coffee and a conversation, which is one of those phrases you know involves either Jesus or a spreadsheet. We went because we are idiots or saints, I'm not sure which. They live in a gated community with ponds so manicured the ducks look like they're on payroll. We sat in a living room where every piece of furniture was the color of eggshells, and a woman handed us coffee in cups so thin I was afraid to exhale. The mother-in-law began with a speech about our families coming together in a moment that got away from us and then pulled out a file folder like she was going to serve us papers. The father-in-law stared at the fireplace like there was an instruction manual in there. The aunt sat on the edge of an ottoman like a news anchor who's about to break the story of her life. They wanted 3 things: an apology, a contribution, and assurances moving forward. I told them they could have 2 assurances right now: nobody on our side will ever hire the coordinator, and my brother and his wife can come to our house anytime without me bringing up the Instagram story of their nephew looking like a discount Wiz Khalifa. As for the other things, absolutely not. Then the mother-in-law tried something new. She said she'd heard Leah had watched an R-rated movie and perhaps this lack of boundaries explained why she felt empowered to insert herself, and I felt my vision go white at the edges like a firework. My wife set her coffee down and said, very calmly, "My daughter didn't feel empowered, she felt needed, which she was, because your ushers were absent. And if you bring up what movies my child watches again, I will invite your daughter to my house and we will watch all of them on your credit card." The room went low and flat. The father-in-law coughed and muttered that it was time to let it go. The aunt tried to salvage dignity and ended up knocking her spoon off the saucer. We left before anyone could find a flow chart. Saturday morning, the 19-year-old usher and his mother showed up at our door with a Tupperware of cookies that smelled like the memory of 1998. The kid looked like a vampire who hadn't eaten. His mom's lipstick was applied with hope. She apologized the way people apologize when the universe has tuned them up. She said the venue had forwarded them an invoice and the deputy's paperwork, and she was mortified, because she'd been telling everyone it was CBD and now the deputy had written odor consistent with cannabis in neat little block letters that made it very un-CBD. The kid said, "I messed up," in a voice so small it made the dog whine. He said he saw the video and realized it wasn't noise up front, it was a kid helping a kid, and he didn't want Leah to think he thought it was funny. Leah came around the corner with bedhead and a bowl of cereal and stared at them like a meerkat. She said, "You're not supposed to smoke at churches," which in our family now qualifies as a proverb. He nodded, eyes shiny, and said, "I know." She said, "It's okay," and then, "Because she is my daughter, just don't tag the venue." His mom tried to give Leah a Starbucks gift card. My wife told her that wasn't necessary. Leah took it anyway and handed it to me and whispered, "For Mom." The cookies were overbaked, but we ate them because Grace sometimes has a crunch. The coordinator sent a second apology, typed and old-fashioned and signed with a real pen. She addressed it to Leah, which felt correct, and wrote, "I am sorry I spoke to you harshly. I was overwhelmed, and that is not an excuse." She included a $25 gift card to a bookstore. Leah asked if she could buy a scary book. My wife and I traded a look. That is the whole arc of our marriage. We told her yes, one scary book, and then if there was money left, something that wouldn't make her sister think zombies live in the pantry. We ended up at the used book place with the cat that weighs 19 pounds. Leah got a battered copy of The Girl with All the Gifts because the guy at the counter told her it was about a smart girl who is not the monster they think she is, and then she picked out a paperback copy of Anne of Green Gables for her 8-year-old sister because she talks as much as Anne. She used the rest to buy a horror magazine from 1994 with a foam latex werewolf on the cover. She fell asleep that night under her blanket with the magazine open on her chest like a kid practicing osmosis. I finally repaired the sprinkler on Sunday. It took 3 trips to Home Depot and 1 YouTube video where a guy named Big Mike in a backwards hat said you're gonna wanna prime that PVC like he was giving me trade secrets. I got soaked anyway. Leah sat on the front stoop and timed the spray cycles on her phone and then drew a map of safe zones in chalk for her sisters to try to run through without getting hit. The 6-year-old ran directly into the water 10 times and laughed with her entire skeleton. My wife brought out popsicles. At one point, Newt and Melissa pulled up because Newt had something to drop off. It was a folded piece of printer paper with neat block letters spelling out, "Thank you for understanding," and a drawing of him and Leah sitting next to each other on a bench with squiggles that I think were supposed to be noise, and little lines around Leah's mouth because she was talking. He said, Without making eye contact, the doctor at urgent care said to have a plan for events, so my plan is I'll be by the door, and I bought noise-canceling headphones, and if someone yells, I'll go to the car. Leah said, or I'll go with you, and he nodded like the plan had been written in the Constitution. Melissa hugged my wife the way you hug someone who has been on your side when it counted. The bride texted me from St. Augustine to ask if Leah liked pirates. She and my brother ended up going for 3 days because apparently a honeymoon is just a nap with better towels. They came back with a plastic pirate snow globe that looks like it will make our bookshelf smell like seawater forever and a t-shirt that says I survived the old jail, which my 6-year-old has commandeered as a nightgown. My brother also brought back a stack of old graphic novels from a little shop on Hippolyta Street, including a zombie comic that features a dad who keeps making bad decisions and then tries to fix them with snacks. He circled that one in a pen like we were in a book club and handed it to me. He said, "Too on the nose?" And I said, "No nose at all." On Tuesday, Leah got an email back from the anthology thing. They accepted her piece. They asked if she'd be comfortable reading the last paragraph at the spring showcase in May. She read the email out loud and then went quiet, which in Leah measure is a 5-second gap. She said, "Will you come?" Like there was any universe in which I would not. I said I'd be there in the front row in my worst Hawaiian shirt so she could spot me. She made a face and said, "Please don't," which is how you know she's feeling better. We also took the girls to the flea market because if the week is going to be weird, it may as well be on purpose. There's a guy there who sells prom dresses from 10 years ago and a woman who sells VHS tapes. Leah beelined to the VHS table and stood reverent like she'd discovered a shrine. We found a copy of 28 Days Later in a cracked clamshell case. She wanted to buy it even though we don't own a VCR. "It's ceremonial," she said. At the dress stall, there was a satin number the color of toothpaste that my wife held up and said, "I dare you." Leah stared at it and then said, "We could make it into a zombie dress, not with spite but with mischief." The seller said, "All sales final," and winked. We took that thing home for $8 and a dream. Leah and I watched a YouTube tutorial called How to Distress Fabric Humanely, which is the funniest phrase I've heard in a while, and then we spent an hour in the backyard, with a cheese grater and tea bags and red food coloring like we were running a very weird bakery. The 6-year-old got involved and painted her arm with ketchup. The 8-year-old started a chant, "Flowers girls by day, undead by night," which is going in the family yearbook if I get my way. My wife stood there with a clothespin in her mouth and said, "If we get ants, this is on you." That night, Leah hung the dress on her closet door. When I went up to say goodnight, it was there, perfectly ruined and perfect, and she looked at it like it was a flag. The last little ripple came from the school, again, but in the good way. The counselor called and asked if Leah would be interested in helping with something they're calling Calm Space Buddies for school events after the band concert where a kid melted down by the timpani. She said Leah's name came up because she has a gift. I said yes, but only if Leah said yes. Leah said yes like the word was a trampoline. We all went to the band concert later that week, and it was loud and terrible and wonderful, and at one point I looked over and Leah wasn't next to me. I spotted her by the double doors, sitting on the ground next to a little kid in a polo shirt who had his hands over his ears. She was talking low and counting her breaths with her fingers. The mom mouthed "thank you" at us from the end of the hall. I wanted to stand up and announce something into the PA system about how proud I was, but I didn't because I've already been that guy this month. When we got home, the sprinklers came on right on time because sometimes a man wins a battle. They clattered to life and hit the window and nobody woke up. I stood in the yard and watched the water arc across the grass. The pirate snow globe was on the kitchen table. The zombie dress was a shadow on the closet door upstairs. The mailbox was empty. The dog didn't bark. I felt it for the first time in a while, quiet without listening for the next thing. Then Leah came out in her socks and said, "Dad, do you think 28 months later is real?" And I said, "It is not, that is a Mandela effect," and she laughed like she'd tricked me, which she had. We sat on the stoop and let the sprinkler mist our legs. For now, that's the end. If the claw machine wants to grab us again, it's going to have to reach through a lot of water.